Ah, what do you think of the new intro? Looks pretty good, right? So, welcome to the next segment of the class. Now we're going to start getting into the fun stuff. Now, it was a toss up on how I should put together this particular report. Let me rephrase. It was difficult for me to really decide how to put forward the next part of this course. I got to thinking about it. The next part that we should probably focus on is landing you some guests, engaging the public. Obviously, this is taking into the assumption that you have already started to establish yourself. You have social media pages already up and going. If not, use some of the links that should be in the previous part of the course. Get yourself set up. This is the cheapest way to do it is easily just to have social media set up. Later on in the course, we'll get into some of the more advanced stuff that'll probably put a little bit of a deeper dent in your budget when it comes to like setting up official websites and things like that. But I wanted to start this off with the easy and low cost solutions to helping you get your channel off the ground. So obviously, how do you go about engaging the public? Well, first off, when you have your social media pages set up, you're going to want to try to engage as much as possible. They have different social media platforms have different requirements that they never really specify to in order to prevent getting shadow banned. Certain platforms they recommend posting something every day. Other platforms at minimum twice a week. And let's just face it, with life, that gets to be hard to do. That's why I also made sure to include links for social media managers so it helps cut back some of the time. So, the first thing you're going to want to do to help build your fan base is to post regular updates on social media. TikTok is an excellent place to do this. Yes, shadow banning is very real. But what I'm going to do is actually going to show you the Bald and Bonkers TikTok account so you guys can actually see a little bit about what I'm talking about. And here's what we got. See, we have different videos. Some of them are kind of random, just random silly things, just to have some fun. There's clips of the shows. Now, in this case, it's highly unlikely you're going to be able to build up a fan base fairly quickly, or maybe you somehow break the mold. You don't know. You never know. So obviously, you see different videos do different, perform differently. There's little video stitches. In my in this account's case, I started to go a bit viral last week at the time of recording this because TikTok released a feature that allows you to build your own filters. And I was goofing around on it and made a Mortal Kombat filter that has gotten almost 3 million hits on it. This is actually a good way to help build your brand, and if you're able to build something popular enough, you can get invited by TikTok to actually make a little bit of money from effects house, as they call it. So there's all sorts of different little remarks here. Just kind of scroll through. It's a good idea to kind of engage with your audience as much as possible. Let's hop over to YouTube. So, see, we have a couple different videos already up. Thankfully, with YouTube, you can just go to YouTube Studio and it helps monitor everything in one place. Well, at least it's supposed to. See, here we have the comment section. This is real information, that none of this is falsified. I'm taking you behind the scenes of Bald and Bonkers. See, this one posted in remarks to one of the videos I posted where I shared that there's a part of me in regards to like ET phenomenon. There's a part of me that still kind of questions whether or not I've gone insane. If you followed the show for a while, you would understand why. So here we're just going to post this here. Huge help. And honestly, genuine replies if you can. If you start blowing up all over the place to where it gets hard to keep track of everything, you know, you're probably going to have a couple people that get upset with you not responding, but life happens, you know? And just give it everything, likes and thumbs up. This is a remark I answered privately through Telegram. But trying to keep up with all of that, it can be difficult, but the people want to know. Well, the people will feel more comfortable if you make them feel heard. You acknowledge that yes, they're there, that they matter. And that's also part of the reason why I encourage you, if you feel comfortable enough with doing it, trying to go for live shows, because it's a lot more fun being able to interact with the audience as things happen. Yeah, and sometimes if you decide to go for more of a supernatural route in your shows, the audience may help spot something that you didn't notice. You want to have a somewhat professional approach, but still be fun, still be show that you're not, that you're still a person. You want to make people happy, make them feel good, entertain them a little bit, whatever it is, the purpose of your show. You want to stick to it, but show that you're not afraid to be human as well. If there's a subject you want to talk about, like you've seen when I just brought up the YouTube page, that it's going to be kind of sensitive for some people, you know what, say it. And you can do what I do and say, if this is a conversation that's a little bit too rough for you, you may want to sit this one out. Your discretion advised. I will also say this: as you get started, especially, you're going to have trolls try to go after you. And you know what? Fuck them. Yes, their remarks can get harsh. There's been incidents where I've personally been attacked because I made company decisions, and these individuals who, honestly, their egos got the better of them. They thought this was going to be a one-shot solution to fame and fortune, which it's not. You got to build your credibility. You got to build your presence. You got to fucking earn it, not just scream and cry anytime you don't feel like you're getting the attention. You're not a you're not a you're not a little kid. This isn't, you this isn't you not getting a toy from mommy and daddy because they won't buy you the toy. No. How you react will affect how people see you. And I'll admit, there's been times where I've blown up at people and I've let these trolls get the better of me. I've done my best to make amends. And I've broken ties with these individuals as best I can because I don't want that kind of energy in my life. But I'm still very much in a public presence. Later on in the course, I'm going to show you some ways how to market yourself without spending too much time. Obviously, social media is going to be a big influence on that, but this is also something you want to try to learn and master and get some sort of rhythm going that works for you early on in the game. Obviously, you're going to evolve as you go. You're going to learn new tricks, different tools are going to be made available as time goes by. It just have That's just how it is. I mean, right now we have a big boom of artificial intelligence creeping its way into just about every aspect of this. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few years. Another big method to building your audience is going to be one of the quickest ways is trying to land high profile guests. If you follow Bald and Bonkers long enough, you're going to know that everything that was built from Bald and Bonkers was because of Elena Denon. Yes, I put in the work, put in the hours, but had we not met, had she not been as generous as she is, we wouldn't have been able to grow as fast as we did. I wholeheartedly admit it. I mean, I feel like I owe that woman some flowers. And showing that kind of gratitude, I'll elaborate a little bit more. Showing that kind of gratitude for your guests goes a long way. Now, your guests, obviously, when you're just starting out, it's going to be harder to get high profile guests. But two important things to remember is that more than likely, not than likely, your guests will want to share out the videos that you do with them. They'll put it on their website, share it on their social media, whatever works for them. Don't pressure them to do it. If they decide to do it, thank them for it. That's their call. In most cases, they will want to share it out, try to help you out, and also try to help with, help direct their audience. They just want to help get the word out there. And it's nothing that they're going to expect to get any compensation for. This is a good way to engage the audience. And if you're been fortunate enough, you build up enough of a presence to where you get asked to interviews, you get to do the same. But this, again, 2 points to remember is that more than likely your guests will want to share out the links to their audience members, and establishing a good image, a good rapport with your guests will encourage them to come back for more episodes down the road. You're not going to want to be going back for an interview with someone who's a complete asshole, are you? Simple as that. How do you land these guests? It's all about approach. Obviously, there's going to be some individuals who have, publicity teams, PR groups, agents that you're going to have to dance through. And you can gun for it. You can gun for it if you want. But when you're first starting out, there may be a time where you have to do a few shows on your own. Even as you grow, you're probably going to have to BS your way through a few episodes because maybe you had a guest cancel, or you just couldn't, just because of what's going on in the world, you couldn't really book anybody in that time frame. It happens. Now, if you have friends or family that may be willing to help you out and have some sort of experience with the topics you want to talk about, ask them to come on. It's a good way to start. Start yourself out with, people that you're familiar with. It'll help you feel more comfortable with what you're doing, and just help you present yourself in a much better light down the road. As you grow, you can start researching people in your niche area and start reaching out to them. You can try to find emails on their websites. You may have, for some individuals, you may have to try to look for agent info. A good way to go through that is if you have an IMDb Pro subscription. That'll help you find out who the appropriate contact people are for certain guests. Now, if you just approach yourself in a professional and respectful manner and show that you've done your homework, about this individual, most people will more than likely say yes. Worst case scenario is that they'll say no, or they'll just miss the message entirely if they're particularly popular. I will have to warn you, certain guests have certain criteria before they will say yes. Say there's been certain individuals who said, you know, not yet, because they want to give their focus to people who have larger platforms, because it'll be easier to share the message that way. So audience size is a big factor. That can help bargain. You may not be in this for fame and fortune, but having an audience size and having a larger platform does help. And this course will help set you up to get those things. Just you'll find out more about that later on in the course. There's been there's also been a couple of times where I've had guests ask if I have a media kit. You're probably wondering, what the hell is that? I'll show you real quick the Bald and Bonkers media kit so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. This is something that will probably be a lot easier for you to put together if you have a main website. Something, just keep it in the back of your mind for now as you decide to, grow and get more. So we're at baldandbonkers.net here. I'm going to show you our press kit, or otherwise known as a media kit. Basically, this tells you some basic information about the show you're on, or in our case, the company, the motivation behind what we do, contact info. There's various different links we share. Oh, I'm going to have to get rid of that I took down the Shopify store. We just weren't getting a lot of people in on that to justify the cost. So we're just going to bring that up real quick. And there's images that you can have here people can utilize to help promote you. And this is a very simple setup. Feel free to use this as kind of a template for how you decide to put yourself together. And one of the service I use for a web developer, I'm just going to share it out, is standout.digital. I happen to catch a deal for a lifetime subscription that allows me to build as many different websites as I want. So that's just a little something to look into. Anytime you come across, you'll probably see ads for them on Facebook, where if the service offers a lifetime access, go for it. It's just like the link to Hero Post earlier in the course. That'll take you to a lifetime subscription, which will save you a lot of money in the long run, especially where Hero Post is getting ready to reveal some brand new features. Let's see, there we go. If you decide to get a website, you want to make sure you have everything updated as accurately as possible. So, because if you have just a bunch of dead links, that's not going to look good on you. It's just a matter of public perspective. So going back to the slideshow real quick, move on to the next. Now here is a good template if you want to reach out to these types of guests. Because Bald and Bonkers has an international audience, we have a certain way of doing it. Email is preferred because, well, obviously phone numbers aren't going to necessarily work internationally. So this is a rough template I've used to land a number of our guests, and it's worked out a good majority of the time. We wouldn't stick with it. Obviously, as the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So feel free to use this as a brief template to write out any emails. Obviously, you're going to want to introduce yourself, Why is it that you're reaching out to this person? Write about what caught your attention about them, why you want to speak with them. Do your best to keep it short and sweet. No, they're not really going to want to read a novel inside their email. Say there's a particular author that you would like to interview for on your show because they just put out a new book. You're a really huge fan. You thought it, spoke some really interesting material. You know, say, hey, I recently read your book, da 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 da, and thought it was interesting. I love, mention details about whatever it is that brought your attention to that guest. So that way it shows you have done your homework. Because again, most people are more than willing to help you out if you want to ask them questions and show that you've done your homework, especially if you show you've done your homework, because that shows you're not just some random person. That shows you have a genuine interest in this, and it makes them feel that reaching out to help you out won't be a waste of their time. So obviously, once you introduce yourself and tell the person why you want to have them on, you're going to want to put details in about your show. You know, what's the general idea about it? How long will it take? Just as a side note, you're going to have more responses if you try to keep your show about an hour, maybe an hour and a half long. If you want to do special episodes every now and then where it's longer, go ahead. If you decide to do kind of a gaming based show, obviously the games are probably going to run a lot longer, so that's understandable. But as far as interview based shows, an hour is honestly your best bet. Because, or in some cases, you may be able to organize a 10-15 minute session where you ask a couple brief questions. I know it's not ideal necessarily for an interview, but if an individual is particularly busy, they'll be able to work that into their schedule a lot easier. And like I said, if you want to a good frame of reference, try to keep it around an hour long. Obviously, you're also going to want to specify, know, are you filming at a specific location? Say, like Joe Rogan has his own studio, or is it done remotely? Doing it remotely, again, that makes it more available to that person. So it'll be easier for them to squeeze you in if it's a remote session, say if they're on the road or they just don't necessarily have the funds to just travel randomly. Is the show live or is it going to be pre-recorded? That's another thing they're going to want to know. In the case of Bald and Bonkers, what we do is we specify that the show goes live on Saturdays and Sundays about 5 p.m. Eastern time in front of a live audience. Then we take the recording from that and extend it further out into various different podcasts. That way people know where their name's going to be going, and they can help share out the links. Again, they'll want to, try to help you out. Well, there, most people you'll come across, there are some genuine assholes out there, but most of the people you come across with these type of shows will be more than happy to share. They'll be more than happy to share. A couple other things you'll want to mention just as kind of a rule of thumb. There's a rule of thumb. Just get in the habit of, just in case you run into those types of guesses, about how many people will be in your audience, and again, where will it be shown? Is it going to be just shown on YouTube, or are you going to share it out? Then, once you're done kind of explaining the format of your show, you just say, thank you for your time. I hope to hear from you soon. If you want to get a little bit more personal attention, which is highly recommended, if this person had a recent achievement in their career, or even they shared something about their family, that feel free to try to make a brief mention of it. Again, this goes to show you've actually done your homework. Say if they just started a brand new show, or they released a new book, or maybe you've been a fan of theirs for years, or if they made a recent, or say you want to get a little bit more personal, say if they made a recent announcement that they just had a baby, or a new baby in their family, say, oh, by the way, I just wanted to simply say congratulations on the little one, something like that. If this is an individual you happen to be a fan of, it's okay to mention that you're a fan of theirs. Most of the time, people will take that as a nice ego boost. It's a nice confidence, boost that someone out there likes what they do. It, there was this acting class I took that was actually taught by Samuel L. Jackson. It's available on Masterclass if you want to go for the subscription. I highly recommend it. There's a lot of really good materials there. But anyway, the one thing he says is it's okay to be a fan, but don't be a fanatic. It's like, it's okay if you're a fan of someone's show, even big stars get a little starstruck about each other from time to time. It's okay to be a fan, but don't overdo it. Don't be crazy about it. Remember this, and you'll go far. It's okay to be a fan, but don't be a fanatic. And obviously, at the end of the email, say kind regards and your name. Again, feel free to use this as your template for emails if you're not exactly sure how to write it out. Now, once you get a response, in some cases, there's going to be some individuals who have an automatic response set up. Just as an example, I reached out to Operation Underground Railroad to talk more about the things they do, as well as the movie Sound of Freedom. Obviously, because of that movie being out and it doing so well, they have a lot of people wanting to reach out to them, which on their end is obviously a good thing to get that a lot of attention, but it can be kind of hectic to try to organize everything. So they'll send a message just saying, hey, we got your email. Don't be discouraged if you don't hear from us. We're getting a lot of hits. Just as another example, another individual I've reached out to and to have as a guest on the show was Robert Kennedy Jr. Obviously, he talks about a lot of conspiracies, and it gets to be kind of interesting where he goes to talk about the tragic deaths in his family, his father as well as JFK. YouTube decides to take down the interview. It was an interview with Mike Tyson, if I remember correctly. That's why I wanted to reach out to be completely honest. I reached out to him within a few hours. I've been gotten a hold of by his press team, saying, "Hey, thank you for wanting to reach out. We've been getting a lot of requests." They actually had a Google form set up for people who wanted to schedule interviews so they can talk about more. Basically, fill out all the information I've already mentioned about the show so they can screen you, see if they like you, as well as put a few dates that you would want to make available for the guest. That's just a couple scenarios I've run into. There's also been cases where I've reached out to people and they've also said, sure, when do you want me? And that's awesome too. Now, growing up, I was a big fan of shows like Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters International, and one of our guests, Philip Mantle, he occasionally sent us contact information for authors that he recently published for his publishing house. He does a lot of UFO-based topics. One of the authors he published was Barry Fitzgerald, who was a prominent figure with Ghost Hunters International. based out of Ireland. I went to go tell my mother about it. Her exact words were, "You lucky son of a bitch." And yeah, I was ecstatic. I got that email saying that Barry would be more than willing to come on the show. Right as I was still at my day job, I honestly started dancing. Don't be ashamed to show your true colors. Dance. I got some good news. I was excited. And honestly, the interview with Barry was one of our best ones because Chris and I were both fans. We dedicated ourselves hard to research his book, go through everything. It was one of our best shows yet. And obviously, when you start getting into the public image, if you tend to be a little bit shy, I'll be honest. I've always been a bit shy. That's why part of the reason why I use the humor approach, because it helps break down walls. So again, I highly encourage people to take kind of a more humorous approach to shows. Obviously, that depends on whatever topics you're talking about. There's going to be, yes, it does. It's the 2020s, and seems like people get offended about everything, but you got to draw the line in the sand somewhere, because a lot of the guests you try to reach out to will do research on you before they say yes. And if they see something that doesn't rub them right, you're not going to get a response. And it happens. So once you go to make contact and you start getting guests on, it can be a bit intimidating at first. It's understandable. That's why there's services out there that allow you to that motion capture your face and portray yourself as a cartoon character. And it's your call if you want to go that route. That's completely up to you. But honestly, worst case scenario, the person you try to reach out to says no. And if that happens, you move on to the next person. For the cases that you get somebody in, starting to get ready for the show, it is highly recommended to add a little bit of a personal touch to the show. Say you have a guest who's an author, decorate the show that so it makes the guest feel more special. Don't be more likely to come to you. And that's as you go further along. You're going to want to try to personalize it so that way your guest feels comfortable. They see that you're excited about them being there. It's good to add a personal touch. I will say this: keep a calendar to remember what guests you have come on and when. It'll just make your life several times easier. I don't care if you decide to get a paper and pencil one or just stick with the calendar on your phone. Use it. Use it, use it, use it. Use it to help save important information about the guests, any links about them, any thumbnails about them. This is something that honestly irked me about Chris, because whenever he would bring up a guest, and it's honestly someone I've never heard of, he would not get me information about this guest until like 5 minutes before the show started. I was like, for the love of God, dude. It's like, come on, we're trying to make ourselves look good. Trying to make sure you're expecting me to put all this together. But you're not telling me about the guest. So I'll get as much as you can about the guest beforehand, so you can research. Again, do your homework. If you have a co-host, get that information to them in a timely manner so they can prepare. Simple as that. I don't know how that's so hard for some people to understand. Now, once you get closer to when the interview actually airs, obviously you're going to want to reach out to the guests, make sure they're still good to go. They may have had something come up where they may have to cancel it. If that happens, do your best to be understanding. You're probably not going to be able to get change a guest last minute. So if it happens just one time, it's understandable. Don't fret about it. But if it happens on multiple occasions, you're probably going to want to start cutting them out. Early on, when Chris and I started Bonkers, we had this one guest in particular that was flighty. We try to schedule her, we try to personalize everything, make them feel welcome, personalize it, fits their personality. And then they wouldn't show. And they wouldn't even give a good reason why. And we got word that they were doing that to other people. It's like, you know what? No. Adios. Good luck with what you do. And unfortunately, as you get out there, you're going to run into some people like that. Don't take it personally. The day of the interview, do your best to stay calm and considerate to the guest. That should be self-explanatory. You don't want to be rude. Don't be one of those guests that purposely sets up interviews in order to just kind of provoke a fight. That's just not cool, man. It's not. Like I said before, do your research. Prepare what questions you have in advance. Obviously, as the interview goes on, you might have something come up that you didn't know, and you'll want to try to elaborate on that a bit more. So there's a little bit of improvisation, a little bit of preparation, but that does not shake that if you're going to have a guest like this, unless it's like some sort of weird open house and they just decide to pop in and say hello, do your research. And also, make sure everybody involved in the show gets their chance to speak. Technical issues may happen, but don't do your best to try not to interrupt the people speaking. It gets to be kind of irritating at times. People may not want to work with you if you develop a habit about that. Now, obviously, you want to be yourself, and sometimes technical issues will happen. If you have to pause to try to see if there is an issue going on, if you decide to do the show live, you got to address it. It's a live show. You can't necessarily predict everything that's going to happen. It just happens. Above all else, as cliche as it sounds, just be yourself and have fun with it. People are more willing to work with others that feel genuine. And the audience will feel that too. They'll enjoy the show. They're more likely to come back. The chat function is going to be one of your best friends here. So I'm just going to post a link to Bonkers here. And I'm going to show this as an example. You're going to want to utilize the chat function to help share links and address questions that the audience may have. I will elaborate this more in the next section of the course, but if you syndicate yourself to a platform that does not show the chat messages, you'll want to show it on the screen like I did here, so that way any audience members you pick up on those platforms can still have a good idea of what you're talking about. And you may also want to address that because of how you decide to have it set up, you may not see everything. Some people, like I mentioned before, some people might get offended about that, but tough luck. It's just how things go. You can have multiple windows, multiple browsers to monitor all these platforms just in case, but your system may not be able to handle that. You'll have a lot of lag that will affect the show. It gets frustrating for everybody. And the main thing you really should take into consideration is that you need to honor the time constraints. If you said it's only going to be an hour, hour and a half, try to keep it to that. If the chat gets going good and you go over, awesome. But people have their own lives to get to. It's best to be respectful about that. People have their own situations going on. And always, always show thanks and appreciation to your guests for coming on before you end the show. Say it right on the air, share the love, but be genuine about it. Above all else, that's the most important part of all this. Be genuine to who you are. And that's it. Simple as that. In the next section of the course, I'm going to walk you through on the distribution process that we utilize for Bald and Bonkers show, as well as address some alternate routes you might take in the event of, say, you decide to pre-record a session, or you have some like a video you want to show on there. Again, different situations will apply to different setups, but this will be relatively universal. We're going to start getting into the actual useful stuff here. So I'll see you in the next segment.